In 1933, a bored salesman in New York folded a large piece of printing paper in half and accidentally invented one of the most powerful storytelling formats in human history. To understand what he created, you need to understand what came before, a world where stories lived in newspapers, not on shelves, and pictures and words had never truly merged. By the 1920s, American newspapers were locked in fierce circulation wars, and their secret weapon was the Sunday comics section. Bright, colorful pages printed by specialist companies on massive rotary presses. These presses printed on enormous sheets of newsprint, folded into spreads for the papers. The printing companies had huge machines hungry for work, and they often had leftover paper and idle press time. One of those companies was Eastern Color Printing, a Connecticut operation that printed comic strips for dozens of newspapers along the eastern seaboard. In 1932, a salesman named Harry Waldenberg noticed something. If you folded a standard newspaper sheet twice, it made a tidy 7 by 10-inch booklet, 64 pages, ready to fill. That booklet could hold full-color comic strips printed on equipment Eastern Color already owned. No new investment, no new ink, just a fold. Waldenberg pitched it not as a product but as a promotional giveaway. Companies could hand them out as premiums, buy our soap, get a free comic book. Procter & Gamble said yes. In 1933, Eastern Color printed Funnies on Parade, a small booklet of reprinted newspaper strips distributed free with consumer products. Nobody thought people would pay for this. A printing salesman named Maxwell Gaines looked at the little booklet and saw something else entirely. He believed people would pay. Gaines put a 10-cent price sticker on some sample copies and sent them to newsstands. They sold out almost instantly. In 1934, Eastern Color published Famous Funnies as a regular monthly newsstand title, the first comic book sold to the public at 10 cents. It lost money for a year, then turned a profit. The format Waldenberg discovered by folding paper became the template, staple-bound, full color, roughly 7 by 10 inches. That format has barely changed in 90 years. Other publishers took notice fast. Dell, DC Comics, then called National Allied, and dozens of smaller outfits began producing their own titles, mostly reprinting newspaper strips. Then someone had a bigger idea. By 1936, publishers were commissioning entirely original stories. They needed content, and licensing newspaper strips cost money. Two teenagers in Cleveland, writer Jerry Siegel and artist Joe Shuster, had been trying to sell the same character since 1933. Nobody wanted him. In June of 1938, their character appeared in Action Comics #1. He wore a red cape, lifted a car over his head, and outsold everything else on the newsstand. Superman didn't just sell copies, he invented the superhero genre. Within months, every publisher was scrambling to create a costumed hero of their own. Bob Kane and writer Bill Finger introduced Batman in 1939. The following year brought The Flash and Green Lantern. Within 2 years, dozens of caped characters were flooding newsstands. In March of 1941, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby put Captain America on the cover of his own comic, punching Adolf Hitler in the jaw 9 months before America entered the war. During World War II, comic books shipped by the millions to soldiers overseas. The Army considered them essential morale material. By some estimates, a third of all magazines sent to troops were comics. At their wartime peak, comic books sold over 1 billion copies a year in the United States alone, a country of roughly 130 million people. William Moulton Marston, a psychologist who helped develop the lie detector, created Wonder Woman in 1941, arguing that comics needed a powerful female hero for girls to look up to. This era, the late 30s through the late 40s, is now called the Golden Age of comics. The industry boomed, and nobody worried much about what children were reading. When the war ended, the cultural mood shifted. Superheroes started feeling old-fashioned. Sales slipped. Publishers turned toward something darker. EC Comics, originally educational comics, founded by Maxwell Gaines, was inherited by his son William after Maxwell died in a boating accident in 1947. William Gaines pivoted hard. He launched Tales from the Crypt, The Vault of Horror, and Crime Suspense Stories, lurid, brilliantly illustrated horror and crime comics aimed at older readers. The problem was that kids were reading them too. Horror comics with graphic violence sat right next to Superman on the newsstand, available to any child with a dime. In 1954, psychiatrist Frederick Wertham published Seduction of the Innocent, arguing, with deeply questionable methodology, that comic books were causing juvenile delinquency across America. The book became a sensation. The Senate convened a subcommittee on juvenile delinquency that spring, chaired by Senator Estes-Kefauver, and summoned publishers to testify. William Gaines appeared and defended his comics as appropriate for mature readers. When a senator held up a cover showing a decapitated head, Gaines said it was in good taste. It did not go well. Facing potential government regulation, the industry regulated itself. Publishers formed the Comics Code Authority in the fall of 1954. The code was sweeping. No excessive violence, no Walking Dead or vampires, no sympathy for criminals, no word horror or terror in any title name. The code effectively destroyed EC Comics. Almost every title Gaines published violated it. He shut them all down except a humor magazine called Mad, which he converted to escape the rules entirely. Most superhero titles folded quietly too. By the mid-1950s, American comics had been reduced to sanitized stories about teenagers and talking ducks. Then, in 1956, DC Comics editor Julius Schwartz revived The Flash, completely reimagined with a new face and a science fiction origin story. Readers responded. The Silver Age superhero was psychologically richer and grounded in science, designed for a generation that had watched Sputnik cross the night sky. Over at a small publisher soon to be renamed Marvel, writer Stan Lee was tired of forgettable monster comics. His publisher challenged him to create a team that could rival DC's Justice League. In 1961, Lee and artist Jack Kirby launched the Fantastic Four, heroes who argued with each other, made mistakes, and felt startlingly human. The following year, Lee and Steve Ditko introduced Peter Parker, a broke high school kid who sometimes lost. Spider-Man became the most beloved comic character ever created. Lee and Kirby followed with the X-Men, Iron Man, Thor, and the Hulk. Marvel's interconnected universe, where characters shared a single world across titles, was a revolutionary idea. In the 1970s, a network of specialty comic shops let publishers sell directly to dedicated fans. Circulation dropped, but revenue stabilized, and creators gained far more freedom. As the direct market matured, darker stories returned. Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons published Watchmen in 1986, a deconstruction of superheroes so sophisticated the Comics Code became a punchline. By 2011, every major publisher had abandoned the Comics Code Authority. It ceased to exist quietly, a monument to a moral panic that had nearly killed the medium it was meant to protect. Today, comics are a recognized literary form. Graphic novels fill library shelves. Art Spiegelman won a Pulitzer Prize for Mouse, a comic book about the Holocaust. The characters born in those 10-cent pamphlets now drive the biggest movie franchise in history. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has grossed, by some estimates, over $30 billion worldwide. All of it traces to a single fold. Harry Wildenberg bent a sheet of paper in half, looking for work to fill his printing press, and stumbled onto something that would last a century. Every panel, every hero, every story contained in a format born from leftover ink and a practical question about paper. This is Origins. Subscribe and come back tomorrow. There's a new origin every single morning.